Hello dear friends. In this video I would like to talk about the two systems of astrology, Sayana and Nirayana, about moving and fixed zodiacs. There is some buzz in astrological circles that we can analyze charts in the Sayana system using methods of Vedic astrology. Or in other words, we can apply rules of Jyotish in the Western or tropical zodiac system. Allegedly, it will give us accurate interpretations and we can forget everything that used to be associated with Vedic astrology. Forget and do not take it seriously because the Sayana system is primordial and the Sayana system shows us events very accurately. There is some great misunderstanding in this opinion. And with this video I would like to dispel the myth because many of my students ask me about it, ask me to comment on it. And in this video I want to sort it out and explain how it combines and how you can use these two systems. I just want to show that it should be used in combination in order to make interpretations more complete. And so we could see events more accurately and more accurately predict what is happening to us on the earthly plane. But before we do this, we need to understand the differences between systems and difference between the tools that come with each system. And let us start from the beginning and remember what these systems are. For the uninitiated, there is a Western astrology. We have been studying it since childhood. We studied it from books when we found out that there are Sagittarius, there is a Scorpio, there is a Taurus. This meant that the sun situated in a constellation generally could describe our personality. Then you can compose a horoscope with an ascendant and see how other planets are situated in different houses and come to conclusions about our fates, our inner settings, our character, and so on. And then there is a Vedic astrology. It came to our lives a little bit later, and many of us were carried away by this direction because it is so integral, so interesting, and in some ways even more mythical. And this is another zodiac, the zodiac which is orientated towards fixed stars. It can be called stationary. If you imagine two circles, then the Vedic zodiac will be the big circle, and inside this big circle there is a little circle that rotates. And this is the basis and the main image that needs to be presented. There is something completely global, and this is the Vedic zodiac, and there is something temporary, the tropical zodiac. The tropical zodiac is easily mastered by a person who is standing on Earth and looking into the sky. He will be guided by the sun and watch how the sun moves around him. And then 4 points would stand out. These are the equinox and solstice points. And this is the basis of the Western astrology. You look at the points where the sun is located when the day and night are equal. And this point is the beginning of our zodiac, the beginning of all the processes that take place here on Earth, under the sun. An important thing must be said here. Western astrology and the tropical zodiac, the Sayana system, is solar astrology, and this is an orientation towards the sun as the main life force. And the position of the sun will determine the beginning of all processes. Therefore, we have an abstract zodiac, We call it abstract when we already understand that the stars are shifting and we must draw an abstraction. When we see that the sun is situated at a particular point of the sky, at the point of vernal equinox, we must lay off the first sign of a zodiac from this point, and it will be Aries. But 500 years later, we will understand that it turns out that the point of vernal equinox has remained in place, but the stars in the background have already changed. And they changed due to the precession of the Earth's axis, and we do not have the same sky as we recorded it 500 years ago. There is a displacement of the heavenly canvas. If we focus on fixed stars, then we will have to invent and calculate the correction. This correction is called Ayanamsha. And there is a big issue here. There is no problem for us, people on Earth, to calculate everything that belongs to the tropical zodiac. This is within our abilities. We can keep track of the sun in the sky and catch the moment when day and night are equal. And we can build an indubitable mathematical system and follow it. In the case of the Vedic astrology, we need to constantly consider Ayanamsha, the difference that at this moment, at this time of our era, in our century exists in space. And we need to know how many degrees it is, and how much we should lay off from the initial point from which we started. And we started 2000 years ago from the point of Aries. Then these two zodiacs coincided. Astrology itself, or how we know it nowadays, originated at the time when we chose the point of reference, and we called it the point of Aries. And it turns out that in the Western zodiac, the point of Aries is always tied to the sun on the day of the vernal equinox, and in the Eastern zodiac, this point is constantly moving along with the fixed stars. It has already shifted. And now again, return to the same image of the large fixed circle and the small circle that rotates inside of it. And this little circle is the tropical zodiac. Within 26,000 years, it will make a full turn, and everything will return to square one, to that very point of Aries. And now astrologers have a dilemma. Which zodiac should be our primary reference point, internal or external? In any Jyotish school, everyone considers the outer zodiac as the main reference point, the one associated with fixed stars, the sidereal zodiac in the Nirayana system. And we have tools for analyzing a person's chart in this system. And here we need to understand what is a person in the system of the fixed zodiac. This is a man of millennia. It takes 26,000 years for a small circle to spin inside a large process. In fact, these are also moving stars, but for us they look stationary because we came here at this time, in this place, in these circumstances. And we have the right to call them fixed. In fact, everything moves, everything flies, everything changes, only at different speeds, and we perceive one zodiac as fixed and the other one as movable, because we already have this culture. If we did not have a culture, we would not have any concept of fixed stars. Imagine that you were born and there are no books, no community, and there are only 3 people on Earth, and there's absolutely no knowledge of anything yet. Now, how will astrology be born? Of course, it will arise from the tropical zodiac, from the observation of the sun, from the observation of the moon. We will conclude that there are 12 stages because the new moon will appear on the sky 12 times. And we notice that the sun will be situated in one part of the sky, and while we wait for it to stand again in that part of the sky against the background of the same stars, then 12 months will pass. It means the moon will turn around the earth 12 times. All of this is pure calculation, there is nothing sacred here. As some say, the number 12 was given to us from above. Yes, it is given to us from above, and any person can discover it for himself simply by observing the moon and the sun for a year. And you arrive at the number 12. On other planets you will get a different number, but we don't know it for sure yet. Maybe those planets that are destined for lives in forms like ours really contain the number 12. But at the moment we have not yet discovered such planets and we're not observing them. Let us say, if we take any other planet in our solar system, there are other cycles. Because if there is a satellite there, then it will measure other cycles. There, a different number stands at the basis of life. And as we can see, our life form is not there. It may be there in a different form, but definitely not in ours. But I got distracted a little bit. Let us continue. This tropical system, the Sayana, the Western zodiac, really is the original system if we look from the perspective of a person who develops on Earth. If we look from the perspective of higher knowledge, higher reason, and the one who created this planet, the one who created cycles on this planet, laid out all these principles, then the true primordial zodiac is the fixed zodiac, the more global zodiac. And people will discover it when they reach that level of thinking that they can call culture. When the concepts of culture, civilization and community will be established. But why it is so important? Because within the framework of one life you will not understand the fact that there is a precession of the Earth's axis. There is the Earth, it's in space, that it rotates, and that's a precession, and this precession has a mutation. We are unable to calculate the Ayanamsha with perfect accuracy just yet, and if you're not fully satisfied with it, use the Sayana, use the tropical zodiac, there are more accurate calculations. And these are accessible formulas for us. But you need to keep in mind that it contains a limited amount of knowledge. We are already at the level of knowledge when the external zodiac is available to us, but we have not yet gotten the gist of Ayanamsha. It is given to us in different versions. We can count it like this and we count it like that, but there is still dispute, and no matter how it is considered, it may be wrong. And why there is so many opinions on it? Because there's not only a question of the precession, but also a mutation. This means that a planet does not move in a circle, it moves in a circle unevenly, it travels a little bit more. That is, it turns out such a flower. Everything is extremely complicated mathematically, and therefore Vedic astrology remains approximate in terms of calculations. But it contains significant knowledge. It contains information about who we are as reborn beings, as creatures with a genetic heritage, as creatures of culture and a global community that originated at some point in the past. And this point is particularly important. As Archimedes said, "Give me a lever long enough and a fulcrum on which to place it, and I shall move the world." To rephrase Archimedes, give me a reference point and I will start my own astrological school. Because in order to create science, you first need to stand on some kind of a foundation. And here is our Vedic astrology for people, the astrology of the Kritika era, the astrology of an era when the sun on the vernal equinox is standing in the Kritika nakshatra. This is logical, because everyone uses Vimshottari Dasha, and the first solar nakshatra is Kritika. But there were not always such times, there were times of Mrigashira, and we know that. We have this knowledge which we call Jyotish, an ancient knowledge. It is so old that it preceded the time when we came to the point of Aries. When the sun stood in Mrigashira, symbols arose in culture, and these symbols were transmitted, and we still carry the legacy of that ancient culture of Mrigashira, because we have a symbol of a deer flying through the sky, and it is associated with the beginning of the new year. This is precisely the symbol of Mrigashira. Mrigashira hops over 2 signs, from Taurus to Gemini, and everyone knows that there is no new year without a deer flying across the sky. This is a proof that we are a legatee of a culture that originated in ancient times. And if we study astrology, we must certainly turn to the roots, to the past times. And this is possible only through the fixed zodiac, because fixed zodiac shows us who we really are. If we think of ourselves as reborn beings, supposedly not everything is reborn, but some parts are reborn all the time. And we are a part of the culture. We're not just people who live one life on Earth. The tropical zodiac analyzes a person within the framework of one life. And it's not a coincidence that this tradition was developed and supported in the West. There was the task of fostering a community that focuses and manifests itself entirely within one life. That is, that the personality must be developed. Everything in the West should be associated with development, egocentrism, and the solar power that guides a person through one life. Therefore, when you look at your Western horoscope, first look at the sun. The sun is an indicator of a personality there. And in the Vedic horoscope, the sun is the indicator of the soul. And here we have a moment where we can answer the question, can we mix these 2 systems? In no case. If you're learning to analyze the Vedic horoscope, never take these tools and bring them into the Western system, because the same planets that you see carry completely different concepts. The sun in the Western horoscope is a person. My character, my charisma, my health, and my way of progressing in life. And everything related to material aspects. But in the Vedic horoscope, the sun is the indicator of the soul. And we, the Vedic astrologers, we never even think to analyze the sun as a planet associated with our character. Our character in the Vedic horoscope is the moon, our mind, and how we perceive space, and how our senses are arranged. This is primarily shown by the moon in the Vedic horoscope. And what does the moon show in the Western system? Moon is the planet of the soul. You may be surprised, but how so? Everything is upside down. Indeed, everything is upside down, because we are in a completely different dimension in the Western horoscope. The sun there is a person and the moon is a soul. But this is not the soul that is equal to the sun in the Vedic horoscope. It is that unconscious, that deep unconscious that moves us and tells us that there is something bigger than this system in which we now live. That this world is global, and this world carries many, many meanings. Through the moon, you are looking for an exit from the system, an exit from the solar matrix, where the sun is an indicator of a personality. And this moon leads you to the Vedic horoscope, and there is the character of the mind. This is the secret. Here is the connection. For example, if you take the tools of Vedic astrology and make your own chart in the science system, you can do it right now. Open the Jagannath Horror software, select the Ayanamsha Sayana Tropical, And you will see your horoscope in the Western system. You will see how planets' positions have changed. And now try to analyze it. You will not be able to do so by means of Vedic astrology, because in this horoscope the sun is a person, the moon is a soul, and planetary aspects are interpreted in a completely different way. For instance, square aspects, when planets are in conjunction from each other, which you consider to be a good position, is a very tense aspect in Western astrology. And why, you would ask? Well, this is also explainable. The things that are important to a person who is still studying himself are not that significant for a person who is already familiar with himself. The Western horoscope looks at a person in his early stage of development, who's just beginning to recognize himself. He's still egocentric, still focused on his personal needs, and has not yet thought about global meanings, has not yet integrated into society, into the culture, or into civilization, and possibly has not understood his generic heritage. And if a person comes to you and asks how to sell his apartment, go on and open the Western chart, because there he will look for a way to sell his apartment. Because for the Vedic horoscope a question about selling an apartment is too small, you can also answer it, but you will need to answer it in a completely different way. This situation is not about the fact that you cannot sell the apartment. The situation indicates that you are more than this situation, that you think is important. In fact, it's not the most important thing. And when a person comes to a Vedic astrologer, our task is to elevate a person to such a height that he breaks away from his everyday issues and starts to look at these same everyday issues through the global filter, through a filter of the entire picture. Why are we here? What is the purpose? We're not living here for the first time, and this apartment that you're unable to sell is simply a tool to show you who you are and the way to start to remember yourself. Any kind of situation, a sale of an apartment, illness, or anything else, just shows you some unresolved internal issues. And if you want to analyze yourself within the framework of the Vedic astrology, when you come to a session with this question, we're not going to talk just about the apartment. First of all, we will talk about your purpose, about the current period according to the Vimshottari Dasha. And what is the Vimshottari Dasha period? It is an emotion that controls you regardless of your desire. And you will work it out as a part of a society, as an element of culture, as the person who is living in the time of Kritika, as each of our predecessors from the time when the sun entered Kritika. This purpose has been going on since then, and you are talking about the sale of a bloody apartment. Now let us make an intermediate conclusion. We cannot take the elements of Vedic astrology and use them in Western astrology. Also, we cannot take the tools of Western astrology and analyze the Vedic horoscope with them. Why? Because this is an analysis in different planes of consciousness of a modern human being. And a modern human being already lives at least on two levels at once. Two horoscopes can be applied to him, the inner, the movable horoscope, the Sayana, which will outline the temporary purpose of a person on this earth. These tasks will seem concrete and understandable to him. How to sell an apartment, where the money is, how to earn it, how to become a famous person if you want to become one, how to ensure your needs for communication and partnership. And this describes the Western horoscope. But there is another level already available to our consciousness, and we're not just people who came here by accident, we came here for a reason. And this reason lies beyond our birth, perhaps in other births, not this one, but in the birth of our family lines. We are part of the clan, and everyone already understands that we are not born here for nothing, that we came here because of some sort of karma, as how we call it. And then it becomes interesting to look at the global picture, and we see this picture in the Vedic horoscope. We will talk about the soul and that the sun indicates it. That sun is natural Atmakaraka. We will talk about tasks for this incarnation, and many people now come with such questions. It's not just where I can get the money question, but what is my purpose in this life? Because people are no longer interested just in material things, but how what I have now correlates with my destiny. Can I see my path clearly? And in this case, we integrate a person into a completely different system, into the system of our society, our culture and civilization. There is a myth that the Sayana horoscope is the horoscope of the higher order. I heard from my students that supposedly you need to first study Vedic astrology and then you will be able to reach the level of Sayana. Quite the opposite. It is logical to start learning the Sayana because then a person will see some small things, satisfy the basic needs. But the problem of any person now is that we already know quite a lot, and we have been prepared by culture and civilization itself. We already understand there is something more, and we are no longer satisfied only with this material level. We want to know more, and then we go to the Vedic horoscope. I have recorded a video on the difference between the Lagna and the Vedic horoscope and the ascendant in the Western. I did it because many people ask me, well, here I am Taurus, and there I am Gemini, now how should I interpret this? I will leave a link to the video below, and here I will say just a few words that Lagna in the Western zodiac and Lagna in the Vedic zodiac are completely different things. For us, this is the assembly point of the personality, the integral degree, which shows how our two hemispheres are connected through the corpus callosum, through which neural connections pass. This is what connects the light half of the zodiac with the dark half, lunar processes with solar processes, mother and father. This is our genetically determined appearance, and this is how we really look. Ascendant in the Western horoscope is our mask, and that is what it is called. Open Wikipedia and see what the ascendant is. The first word you will see is mask, and the meaning is similar to the Aruda Lagna in the Vedic horoscope. This is the image that we put on ourselves in order to achieve personal success in society. This is the meaning of ascendant in the Western horoscope according to the Sayana system. And that is exactly why you cannot in any way combine these two systems and suddenly transfer tools from the Vedic horoscope to the Western one, because everything is completely different. And the further we live, the more different it will be. Of course, you will ask the question, but what to do with it? What if I have positions in Leo in the Vedic horoscope, in the Western horoscope these positions are all in Virgo? You need to combine it. You need to understand that the Western horoscope shows the tools for the development of your soul on a material level. What if you have positions in Leo, in Magha Nakshatra, for instance? Nakshatra is fixed, and in general, I am sure that Nakshatra is older than the sign. Nakshatra has such a deep meaning, it is what we got from another culture, the culture before Kritika. And then nakshatras were called differently, so our Mrigashira nakshatra was called Invaka nakshatra. And these images have passed to us as a legacy, and they stay with us. If you have positions in Magha, your mind is already consumed by your cultural layer, by an image that does not depend on you. Your consciousness is captured by the task of cognizing ancient knowledge and cognizing your center. Explore your genetic heritage and dig into it all. And the tool which helps you to do it is given to you through the Western zodiac. So, if you see the same planet in Virgo in the Western zodiac, this means that you will be using a tool, for example, a pen. We can connect it. A person who meticulously writes, studies, finds reliable facts, a person who digs deep. But you'll still be motivated by the Vedic horoscope. That is, you will be a person who meticulously learns the past. Because you have positions in Magha that are refracted into positions in Virgo in the Western zodiac. And let us imagine that after a while a person with a position in Magha will receive this position in Libra. Because the small wheel inside a big wheel is rotating all the time. And after 200 years, after a certain period, people will be born who will see it differently and they will have another tool. And the task of cognition of the past and cognition of the genetic heritage, they will approach with the help of another tool, with the help of communication. They will sort things out and thus work on Magha. But people who now have this Leo-Virgo position, they will work out this position through intellectual knowledge. Here is an example of how you can combine and analyze positions in the Western and Vedic zodiac. And with this I would like to finish this video, and I hope you found it interesting. It's not even 5% of what I wanted to say, as it would have taken long hours. If this topic was interesting to you, please write your comments below, and in my next video I will talk about my other project and announce the course about Zenith, the Shamsha and profession. I find the topic of combining two zodiacs as remarkably interesting. But now it's not the right time to make a course for it. Therefore, I'm just sharing this information because so many people are curious about the issue. And I just want to warn you against the opinion that we can simply jump to the science system and flourish within it. We will lose a lot, and you will only get more confused. Another important point that if you started to study any system, and I suppose most of my followers study the Vedic system, then study it for at least 5 years. Gain experience, practice, develop your own tools, develop your techniques and master it. And only then switch to Sayana. That is, do not switch, but add Sayana to your interpretations. Otherwise, there will be a complete mess, and the only thing you will understand is that nothing really works. Now, thank you very much for your attention, and I'll see you again very soon.